We need to find the derivative of this function. The first thing we might do is see if there's any algebra that we can do to simplify this a bit. I'm not seeing anything. So the next question we ask is, what kind of function are we taking a derivative of? In other words, what derivative rule should we be using? A power rule, a product rule, a quotient rule? Well, it looks like we have the quotient of two functions, so let's use the quotient rule. Let's see if we can use this rule to find the derivative of this function. The quotient rule says that we need to copy down the denominator. I'm going to move this down a little bit so we have some space. Then we need to multiply this term by the derivative of the numerator. Then we subtract, we copy down the numerator, and we're going to multiply that term by the derivative of the denominator. We're going to take this whole result and we're going to divide it by the denominator squared. Now the next step is going to be completing this derivative right here, the derivative of x times sine of x. But you'll notice that this function is a product of two functions. So to complete this derivative, we're going to need to use a product rule. So let me make some space here for a side problem. Okay, off to the side here, we're going to see if we can find the derivative of x times sine of x. And the product rule says that we copy down the first function, that's x. We take the derivative of the second function, that would be the derivative of sine of x. Then our second term is going to be the derivative of the first function times the second function. We know from this section that the derivative of sine of x is cosine of x. So this first term becomes x cosine x. We know from the power rule that the derivative of x is just 1, so our second term just becomes sine of x. I'm going to take that result and plug it in right here. And back in this original problem, notice that we also need to take the derivative of 2 plus cosine of x. Well, the derivative of 2 is 0, so that goes away. The derivative of cosine x is negative sine of x. Now, hopefully something will simplify here if we keep going with this algebra. Let's FOIL out these two binomials. And I'll leave the denominator exactly how it is for now. Okay, multiplying out those numerators requires remembering that cosine times cosine is cosine squared, and sine times sine is sine squared. I'm noticing now that we have a couple of terms, this x cosine squared x and this x sine squared x. And those two terms are added together. Notice if we just focus in on those two terms, if we factored an x out of those two terms, we'd end up with a cosine squared plus sine squared, which is our fundamental trig identity, our Pythagorean identity. So we can say that these two terms here simplify to just x. If we make that simplification, let's see what we're left with. And I guess the only question I have left is, can we factor the numerator any further in the hopes that maybe one of these terms from the denominator will cancel as well? I just spent a couple of minutes trying to factor this numerator, but I didn't get anything to simplify. So I'm just going to box this thing up and call this good. I'm going to zoom out on this so you can see all of the work that we did. I hope that helps you out, and I'll see you next time.